Hey friends, welcome back to Creators of the Lost Art. I'm Ron and I have a problem. You see, with the amount of animals that Miss Mandy has planned to be going through our little farm here, inevitably I'm going to be processing a lot of animals. Which was the plan all along, was to raise our own meat so that we're less dependent upon the grocery store and we know where our meat is coming from and what has been fed. But I need a station where I can cleanly and efficiently process these animals. So I'm thinking I'm going to build a little table with a sink in the middle that's connected to a drain that just drains into a bucket to catch anything that may come out. And I'm going to do that as cheaply as possible. So I've got this rather large pallet that I picked up from work for free, just chucked it in the back of the truck and brought it home. And I'm going to be pulling all the nails out of it. I'm going to build almost the entire thing out of just this pallet and some screws that I have stashed away. And I'm going to add this sink that I stole out of the Ark, which we won't be needing, but our little pop-out camper that we have, I stole the sink out of it. I've already stolen the stove and the refrigerator out of it for other projects, so I thought, why not just take the whole kitchen, including the kitchen sink. My cutout for my sink is 16.5 inches front to back and 24.5 inches long, and I want to fit it in the center of this. So I cut my cross pieces at 16 3/4, which is an extra 1/4 of an inch to give it some wiggle room before I mount the sink in there. Now, I know I want a flat top all the way across, and I want to put hardware cloth on one end, 1/2 inch hardware cloth on one end, because in the past, the issue that I ran into with a solid top is like cleaning fish, if the solid top gets covered in slime and gets covered in scales and it gets really slippery. So if I put hardware cloth on one end for fish or things slippery, or even just matter dropping through to a catch basin below, that's what I want to do on this end. On the other end, I still want to have a solid top for, I don't know, vegetables or something that needs to be on the solid top and not scraped up by the hardware cloth. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure to the center and then measure back so that my sink will be in the center. This is 6 foot long, so 3 foot, and then measure back 12 1/4 inches on each end, and then that's where I'll put my sink, right in the middle. I want to use these rough cut, or they're rough on one side, finished on one side, 1x6s as the hard top on the other end. But I want it to set down flush underneath the sink, so I'm going to have to take my table saw and cut out some material so that this will sit down inside there and have a nice flat top all the way across. So my battery went dead. Actually, that's what all YouTubers say whenever they make a mistake. And yes, I made a mistake. I had cut this groove a saw blade too deep. So when I set my top board down in there, it wasn't flush with the top of this one. This is pretty rough. I'm going to sand it down. But it was the only board I had left long enough for that side. So now I'll be able to cut these pieces, set them down in here, sand it over, it'll be flush with the top, and I can set my sink in the middle. For now, I've got to go back over to my miter saw and miter these at a 45-degree angle so that it gets rid of this gap right here. It'll close that in into a corner, and my piece will sit down there nice and flush. To me, the secret of building with pallet or rough-ish cut lumber is lots and lots of clamps. So I'm going to get this clamped up where I want it, drill a couple of pilot holes, get the corners kind of locked in, and then I'll show you guys how to square it up. For squaring it up, it's just simple geometry. We pull from one quarter to the other corner, 72 3/8. And then we go on that corner and pull this way, 72 9/16. So that's pretty square. It could be out, a 1/16 of an inch could be the cut may differ. I think I'm gonna leave it alone. Put a square in it to check how square it is. That's pretty square, but depending on the wood, it may have some bows or knots or something that will kick the square out. So the best way is to pull cross corner for squaring. And that goes for anything. So I attached the top boards, put in this little support. I measured it for the sink. I've got the places marked for the other support on this side, on the other side of the sink. But for now, I flipped it upside down because I want to go ahead and attach my legs before I can set my sink in it. I want to put a little cross piece on the bottom where I could set a bucket to catch any kind of waste from animals or waste from produce. So now I got to figure out how to put the legs on it. I scavenged these wheels from an old grill I've got sitting out back. You guys may have seen it in my other videos. But I'm going to be using that for something else later. I don't need the wheels. I thought what better place to put them than on a mobile table that I can move around the farm to whatever we're doing. And then just drag a garden hose to hook up to the sink. So I think I'm going to build my legs, one on each side on this end, a single one on the other end. Put the shaft, the axle, and these wheels on each end, so just make it a little easier to move. But I've got to figure out some math in the meantime. Found this piece of pressure treated 2x6 that I ripped down to make, I don't know, something, handles on the chicken coop or something like that. But because I don't want anything that's not treated, this is not treated lumber, it's not going to last forever outside. So I want to be able to move it underneath my lean-to when we're not using it to keep it dry. But I don't want anything that's not treated in contact with the ground. And on this end, I'm going to have a foot like this. So I want to use this treated lumber just on the bottom, and the rest of it will just be pallet wood. All right, got my single leg on. I do want to miter in some supports, something that looks like that on the top and on the bottom. But quick tip for you guys who are trying to figure out the length of an angle. It's always a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's a Pythagorean theorem. Learned that in high school. Still use it. I had this leftover piece of hardware cloth, half-inch hardware cloth from the rabbit hutches. I thought that would go right here real nicely. Be able to, anything that scrapes off of anything would fall right through. Probably gonna put some buckets down there to catch things in. I've got 3/4 inch staples in my staple gun. I staple this down and cut off the little metal ends that it leaves because those can scrape you up. Picked up this fitting from the local hardware store. It's a 1/2 inch female pipe threads to 3/4 female hose threads, and a garden hose will screw directly into here. I'm going to put it on my sink so that I can connect this hose. I've got a short garden hose here that maybe 6 or 8 feet long that I can leave permanently attached to that, and I can roll it up to whatever hose bib out in the property or stretch another garden hose to connect to it, so that I'll have water wherever it is, whether it's in doing quail, butchering quail, or chickens, or if it's processing vegetables out of the future greenhouse, hoop growing house, or wherever I want to take it, cleaning fish, whatever. I'll have that ability to hook it up to any hose bib around the property and have water in it. Now the final thing I want to do on this table is to add a little handle right here that I can hook this hose on when it's not in use. When I wheel it around, it'll be right there, ready to attach. I could hang maybe a bucket for excess scrap or waste from an animal, but that's the last thing that I want to do this, and it will be finished. So here's the finished table. I added the handle on the end just for ease of moving it. I didn't even put a plate under the bucket because the drain on here is low enough that the bucket won't tip over either way. It won't slide out, just to catch the water. Got the sink connected to just a standard garden hose. It's got a short lead garden hose on it, but I could hook it up to a faucet or to another hose for an extension. Cold side works. The sink works great. It even rotates all the way around where I could fill a ice chest, rinse out an ice chest or a bucket or something like that. Pretty waterproof, treated lumber on the top. I got the wire mesh side for the sticky stuff to fall through, and then this side for whatever else we want to use it for. All in all, I'm pleased with it. It's going to work perfect for our purposes of butchering chickens and rabbits and quail or what have you. Alright guys, I wanted to add that if you guys wanted the plans for this, you could just wing it like I did. Worked out great. Like, subscribe, and I can't wait to see you next time. To sum up, I've got $23 in this project, and that's because I had to replace the faucet. The one from the camper had frozen and busted, and it just blew water out of the top here. So I replaced the faucet. Everything else I had left over from other projects, or it's pallet lumber or what have you. But for now, my work here is done. Till next time,